Hi there, it's Ron Gula from Gula Tech Adventures. Today we're going to talk about tips you can use to manage the growth of your company by efficiently managing your organizational chart. Now, this might sound like a boring topic, but I will tell you, after starting 3 companies, including Gula Tech Adventures, Tenable Network Security Wizards, having an org chart, having it run well is very useful to the success of the company. And having looked at probably 1,000 different companies as an investor for Gula Tech Adventures, it's really interesting to see the type of mistakes people can make when they're managing their company. Now, for the most part, the kind of mistakes that they're making have to do with growth. And it's a good problem to have. It's a first-class problem to have. You're doing something right if your company is growing so much that you're having issues, how to lay people out and organize your organization. So having said that, one of the first big things that I see companies get wrong is titles. Now, this might sound like not a really important thing. Titles, they can be silly. They can be, they want to be kind of interesting maybe, but there's a lot of mistakes that can be made here. The first big mistake is that organizations give out the chief title, the VP title, and maybe even the director title a little too early. Now, if you're 2 founders, maybe you're the CEO and the CTO, and maybe the first person you hire, you're going to be very tempted to be, a vice president or something, because it just, they're only one step below the CEO. But the reality is, you really need to think about when you promote these people, what job are you going to give them? So you really want to have a sense of what that organizational chart is going to look like, and then fill it in. You're going to hear me say that again. Now, the second thing is some sort of standardization. Now, if you think of something like somebody who manages 3 other people, maybe that should be a director. Maybe that should be a team lead. Whatever that is, it should also be consistent between HR and IT and engineering. And I've seen a lot of organizations where those people managing 3 people have completely different titles. And guess what? It leads to different pay, income. It really makes it hard to treat people fairly or even understand what a baseline is. And then the last thing is just trying to enforce, if you've hired somebody to be the director of engineering, publicly, they shouldn't be introducing themselves as a CTO, as a threat researcher, as it needs to be consistent. And if you think about public appearances, social media appearances, and what they're doing on the inside of the company, you can see different titles. So trying to make that standard is really, really important. Now, the second thing, titles, is really just the first step. The second hard part about getting an org chart right is what are people's job descriptions. Now, I always used to roll my eyes when it came time to, hey, let's redo the job descriptions. But it really was because I was approaching it the wrong way. These don't need to be cute. They don't need to be complex. They need to just say what it is. But a lot of times, organizations, as simple as that is, they're like, well, what else do I put? Why should I have this? You should really be describing 2 other things. One, who is the reporting structure? Is it a team lead? Is it a person? Is it that? What is that job's? Who does it accountable to? And a lot of times that's not captured in the job. It's more about what the person does than what they do that activity for and how it relates to the company. And then lastly, how is it going to change? The second thing I think people miss the most in these job descriptions is, how is it going to change this year? How is it going to change in 2 years? If you do your job well and the company does what it's supposed to be doing on plan, your job should change to this. And a lot of times, organizations just don't really embrace how they change. But if you think of your job as a CEO, as the chief change officer, and again, I'm violating my own rule of, funny titles and whatnot, that's exactly what people don't have visibility into and why sometimes you get the eye rolls with job descriptions. Now, speaking of change, this is where it gets into a really interesting discussion about organizational charts. One of the big questions I always get is, when should I promote people? And when should I hire people from outside? And this is when your organizational chart can really, really help you. So if you think about your organizational chart of today, we all know what it is. You have it. You have your org chart of today. Think about some point in the future that you're trying to achieve. Maybe it's some sort of revenue goal 2 years from now, a certain type of product or customer support. Think about what that org chart is going to look like in 2 years. To the best of your ability, talk to your board, talk to your co-founders, talk to your team. Come up with what that thing that you should all be describing for. And that's something that you can then use to say, well, who is in our company that is gonna fit into that. Maybe you have a director of engineering, which is not going to be able to function as a vice president of engineering. Maybe you do. Maybe you have somebody who's been doing human resources, and they are really much better for recruiting, and they're not going to run human resources. The point is you know the people you have, and you need to take a chance on them, but you also need to have a realistic view of which people are not going to achieve those jobs of the future. So for the things you have left, that's where you can really go and recruit new talent outside. This is a great way to manage culture. This is a great way to also bring in new ideas and new talent. And the organization chart can really help you do that. So those are my, the big tips there. But the last one is, don't forget that, take that 2-year plan, 3-year plan. And then as you're doing that exercise, well, what can you do to get that closer? How can you bring that thing from 2 years from now or 3 years from now? How can you make that happen and bring that today? And I always think about, what can you do with the org chart of the future today? The more you can think about that, the more you can actually try to make that reality, grow your company faster, which will make your customers happy, make your employees have a better understanding of where they're at and what they need to do to be successful. All right. So now those are some things people should do, but it's things that you might have in your org chart today that could be warning signs, right? Do you have too many direct reports? I see this an awful lot. The CEOs, a lot of CEOs are overachievers. A lot of co-founders are overachievers. They have a large number of people. And they also feel like they need to be the decision point. You are actually creating more risk by doing that. More decisions that flow through you. You might feel it's a form of control, but the more you're delegating and empowering those decisions, the more you're going to be able to scale. Now, if you have any type of dotted lines in your org chart where Larry is reporting to Mark, Sally's reporting to Joe, and so on, you need to clean that up. That is working together is not an org chart. Everybody in your company should have dotted lines to each other, but they shouldn't be dotted lines of command and responsibility. It should be a direct line of communications. Another thing that this is there, if you have somebody who's a organization of one, you have, Nathaniel over in the corner there, and Nathaniel has got 9 PhDs and he's in charge of, algorithms. Well, that's great. Maybe he's really part of engineering and his job description is algorithm. He doesn't need to be on over there. Those same kind of one-off people also tend to have unclear reporting. So these are the kind of things that you need to watch out in your org chart. If you have them, you need to fix them. You need to handle them by going directly at them, having an honest conversation. And sometimes, moving people in an org chart or changing their titles might seem like a demotion. The longer you delay it, the harder it's going to be, and you just need to confront those things head on. Hope you found this video interesting. I'm Ron Gula. If you want to learn more about growing companies in cybersecurity, subscribe to this channel or visit us at gula.tech or follow us on LinkedIn. Have a great day.